without further ado, let's take it to our first headline. We are breaking down the favorites in the SEC this upcoming season, and who other than Alabama is leading the way, Tom.
Yeah, so Vegas came out with their over-under win odds, and it's very heavily in favor of Alabama and Georgia. Both of them are over-under at 10.5 wins. The next best is Auburn down at 9, and then it's Mississippi State at 8, believe it or not, followed up by a bunch of 7s and 6s. The one fun note for me was Tennessee was 5.5, the over-under, or whether or not they'll actually make the bowl game. So, look, no surprise here. Alabama, Georgia, those are your favorites in the SEC. Then it's Auburn, and then maybe somebody's able to make a bit of some noise there. But I think the SEC in general, especially right now, is very top-heavy.
So who do you have winning the SEC this year?
It's Alabama.
Way too early
because
prediction.
It's always Alabama
okay.
because it's boring, and it's Alabama every single year, and we get tired of it. But they're a dynasty for a reason. They're absolutely incredible.
All right, well, make sure you're weighing in at home. We want your reactions. And give us a heart for Alabama, a like for Georgia, a wow face for Auburn, or a ha-ha face for other. Make sure to put that team in the comment section below. Next, Tom.
Can't wait to see a Kentucky vote. Can't wait.
Oh, maybe. Next, Tom. The SEC, have they stopped Hugh Freeze from going to Alabama? Is this true?
If Nick Saban and Alabama had their way, they would have Hugh Freeze on their roster as a co-offensive coordinator and a position coach as well. What happened was SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey got word that, hey, Alabama and other schools, LSU, Missouri among them, were trying to hire Hugh Freeze after the disaster that was his tenure at Ole Miss, at least at the end of it. And Sankey was kind of like, let's not do this. This is a bad idea. Let's not have a guy who just had a big role in hurting another SEC program get a nice cushy job as an OC within our conference. And this is actually allowed within the SEC bylaws. The commissioner is allowed to say when there are incidences of unethical conduct, like what Hugh Freeze had or violated other NCAA bylaws, he can come in and say, no, let's not do this. So he didn't make Alabama not do it, but he was like, hey, you guys shouldn't do this because of this. And Alabama said, okay, fine.
Do we know if Saban has come out and say anything?
Well, Saban has had some high praise for Hugh Freeze, but I don't think he's going to come out and say, yeah, I wanted to hire Hugh Freeze, but I had to go stick with my new OC. He was my backup plan. Coaches aren't going to come out and do that and kind of be like, oh, yeah, the guy I just hired, you were my backup plan. Sorry.
All right, well, Hugh Freeze is not heading to Tuscaloosa. All right, let's move on. Tom, tell us about this, quote, setback Saban was talking about regarding Tua.
So Tua had this hand injury for pretty much all spring. It was injured early on, and then he was slowly working his way back into spring. As of Friday, he'd been getting 20 to 15 snaps in the scrimmage and then, quote unquote, a lot of snaps on Friday. But then he had a setback, and there was a lot of speculation because of his Instagram story. He had his left hand what appeared to be in a cast. It looked like he was in a wheelchair, and the caption was post, implying like, oh, post-surgery perhaps. So Tua's hand is not right at the moment, and that's a big deal as we discuss the quarterback battles coming up. Jalen Hurts versus Tua. Tua has not been able to really practice at all, at least in the way he wants to practice in the spring. So he's kind of behind right now, had that setback. We saw how good he was in the national championship game, but if he's not healthy, it's tough for him to actually win the job when he didn't have it before the season.
He'll be questionable for the spring game this upcoming Saturday.
He's not going to play in the spring game. He will not play in the spring game, and the hope is he's going to go once fall camp starts up.
All right, there you have it. Okay, Tom, what is all this talk about? A Michigan player threatening Jim Harbaugh.
So Elise Mbase was apparently suspended by Michigan. That's what his tweets had said. And he kind of went off in, I don't know, a Twitter rant, a Twitter meltdown, maybe one of those. It was very strange and frankly concerning because Mbase had tagged Jim Harbaugh after a series of rather concerning tweets mentioning that Michigan is an open carry state and had mentioned he's going to put someone in the morgue next time. And it was all very concerning, and that was first reported by our own James Yoder. And he said he was suspended definitely by Michigan, and there's some stuff going on right now with Mbase, so hopefully he's able to get some help because I think he needs that at the moment based on what we saw on Twitter because it was rather concerning.
And he actually tagged Harbaugh.
Yeah, he tweeted at Coach Harbaugh after that.
Very interesting.
It did not look very good. Look, he's a backup linebacker. We would assume now suspended because he said he was suspended by Michigan, but it's a very head-scratching situation for Michigan football right now.
Yeah, not a good look.
Concerning, too.
Not a good look. Okay, next up, wide receiver from Oregon State, Seth Collins, is headed to Texas Tech.
Such a strange career for Seth Collins. He was the quarterback at Oregon State, was fun to watch, pretty dynamic, and then in 2016, he was going to be moved from quarterback to receiver, said he was going to transfer. 3 months later, comes back to Oregon State as a receiver. Has actually a pretty good first year, was second on the team in catches, had almost over 400 yards in a not great Oregon State offense. But then he was hurt a lot this year, had a 4th-degree assault charge in December, missed all but 3 games, and is now on his way to Texas Tech. So we'll see if I don't have a great update for you on the assault charges. I think that might have been kind of handled behind the scenes more or less. But the hope is that he can continue to make an impact for Texas Tech, who is losing quite a few offensive players this year. Dylan Cantrell, Kiki Cutie among them at wide receiver.
Well, hopefully he'll be able to get it done for the Red Raiders. Next up, Tom, running back Tre Watson from Cal is set to visit Texas.
Yeah, he's a graduate transfer, suffered a season-ending injury in the 2nd game last year, was going to visit BYU after he visited Texas Tech. That was canceled, the BYU visit was. So he's visited Texas now, and also visited LSU. He's going to be at Texas' spring game this week. Texas is in need of more running back depth. Watson can bring that. Not the biggest guys. He's 5'10", 190, but can do some special teams help, can do some receiving game help. A nice all-around back to give you some more depth for Texas, who does need help there.
So where would be the best fit, you think, for them?
I mean, I think, look, LSU lost a lot of key players at halfback. That might be the route I go if I'm Watson. I think Texas Tech, if you want to be more involved in the passing game, if you want to be maybe a run-first back, well, LSU is not going to throw the ball because they never throw the football. Texas is kind of the middle of those two based on offensive styles. I think LSU might be a good fit for him because I think maybe the potential to get more work is the easiest route at LSU. Excited
to see where he ends up. Next, Tom, hate to see this. Deondre Francois is back in the headlines with some more off-the-field issues.
We know he was arrested for marijuana possession, and apparently how that all started was Tallahassee police had a tip that Francois had 2 pounds of marijuana in his apartment in late February, and they thought that he was dealing drugs. So they did an investigation. When they eventually went to arrest him on Thursday, he only had 17 grams of marijuana on him. So no actual evidence that he was drug dealing there. And then when he was found, like, oh, I can't smoke right now. It all belongs to my girlfriend. So it's
one that he allegedly
I believe so, yeah. Okay. So I mean, we never found out her name because that was all sealed.
I believe her name was Diamond.
Okay. Yeah. Either way, look, Francois just got to stay clean. Like, he has got to get himself out of the headlines for all these bad reasons here. He's still on the FSU football team. Willie Taggart said, he was going to be on the team, and we'll see what happens with Francois. We know he's talented. We're going to talk more about the FSU quarterback battle here in a little bit, but he's got to get his head on straight because he's talented, but if you keep getting yourself in trouble, no one's going to want you.
Got to get it together. Next up, Tom, defensive lineman Jay Hayes is set to become a Sooner.
Yeah, he's going from Notre Dame to Oklahoma, actually originally from the New York area. He's 6'3", 289. He's not a great pass rusher, kind of more of that 3-4 defensive end, good at clogging lanes and holding up blocks and letting his pass rushers get to the quarterback. But he's going to be a reliable depth or maybe even starter for Oklahoma. It's a good addition for the Sooners, who are once again trying to compete for a national title.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We've got a recent decommitment from the Hurricanes. So tell us about this one.
This is class of 2020, not 2019, but Leonard Manuel is a 5-star wide receiver from Florida, 6'5", was committed to the Hurricanes, but then decommitted today, and not long, by the way, after he visited Georgia.
Interesting.
Read between the lines. I would expect in the next week or so, maybe a little bit longer, you'll see Manuel commit to Georgia, though he did tell rivals Georgia, LSU, Florida, Florida State, Texas, Penn State, Clemson, even Tennessee and Nebraska are still in the mix as well. But Georgia seems to be the front runner right now for Manuel, that 2020 receiver. So not this class, but next year's class.
All right, excited to see where he ends up.